Captain's Log, Guardian Chronicles, September 2nd, 3308. V. Clara commanding. So much is happening, I'm not sure where to start. We have more symbols, and we have matched them to things. We also feel like we have decoded a basic set of instructions on a panel. They just don't really tell you anything. And we are discovering that the simple compass concept is far more complex than it at first appeared. I will start with some of the markings. As we were analyzing the relics and the keys for specific markings, aside from the power triangle we showed you in the last update, we came across what looked like a rectangular set of instructions for software, which makes us believe that the actual power in the device is transferred to the glass when the glyph comes in contact with a matching combination. This begins the transfer of power and software. The light emitted at the proper angle can be seen specifically pointing in two directions from the triangular slots on the inner chamber, which is inside the translucent orb powering the device, obviously making it perfect for insertion into something like an obelisk or pylon, with positive and negative sides and a third side facing out. And it makes a sound that is being analyzed right now by two laboratories. It appears to be emitting a signal through a wireless energy dispersion which is unidirectional. We have seen evidence of this same process on a much larger scale at the beacons. We assume this is either a signal wavelength passing through a gas cloud or a transfer of energy that powers the network. We were trying to make a detailed analysis of the orb inside and its central chamber when we came across these strange markings. We couldn't believe what we were looking at. We had found these same markings on Alpha while testing Commander Running Wild's report in the NGC 3199 region. With our night scopes on, we flew around the back of the facility and found stick markings on the main triangular stone at the base of the dome, and the S at the bottom of the main chamber. We have checked other Alpha sites and found the same markings in different stages of erosion, but always present. We have only observed these markings at the Alpha complex, and we are comparing it to structure layouts now, even though it looks like the depiction of a rising relic tower, having been found both on the outer wall and on the inner chamber or orb. These markings seem to tie the crystals throughout the civilization, specifically to the Alpha complex. Except for these, the crystals that power the computer cores. These seem to incorporate a unique inverted design that places the striations on the outside of the crystal in bold relief. There is no hint of the glyph that is present on the other crystals, and it is absent of all other identifying markings aside from the power triangle that we can tell. They do, however, have their own unique set of markings. We are analyzing these markings now, but they vary between the cores from the structures and the cores from the beacons. Small sets of parallel lines and a bold cross pattern seem to separate the structure core from the beacon core, which has the power triangle and a ground marker pattern grafted on it, along with a small notch on one side. The windows on the side of the core's structure itself seem to be two-dimensional copies of the relics, but without the top portion that contains the glyph, giving us the impression that these are assembled in two stages. The crystal is grown, and then the computer software and power systems are added before the top piece is placed on top of it with the glyph in place. Which means what we originally thought were tool marks are probably the remains of some kind of fusing or welding system to put the two halves of the crystal together. The markings on the core itself also differentiate between the structures and the beacons. While the computer core at the structures contain identical markings to the structure complex, the beacon's core is decorated in very specific geometric shapes, and these shapes are laid out in a very simple process, with directional lines to indicate flow. From what we can see, they perfectly describe a certain set of objects with the necessary steps for activating the complex at the structure. Even the manufacturing process of the crystals is described. This is the only set of markings we have found that was not completely abstract. It is literally laid out so simply a fourth grader could break down the process. Just a simple series of steps and shapes that tell you what to do with the key once it is released. Activating the pylon, inserting the relic, and downloading the software all seem to be described with geometric shapes. As we were examining the crystals, we started to get feedback on the report written by Commander Running Wild. Almost automatically, people started sending us images of how the lines from the complex line up with other things. The first one sent to us showed that the beacons were laid out in precisely the same pattern. The second one, submitted by a player named Blue Crash, showed a photo of the Alpha lines lining up with other Guardian regions on the galactic map. While the scientific community scoffed at this, we feel it necessary to remind them that this is a pattern. Your ability to recognize patterns is paramount to solving this puzzle. We are finding ourselves flabbergasted at the amount of information that was never investigated under the excuse that it didn't look scientific enough. We have established patterns throughout this civilization that are pretty hard to miss unless you're willfully ignoring it. So take note. The survival of your species is at risk, bro. Get your head back in the game. As for us, we have spent the last 2 weeks going over the logs from the Guardian missions. We are finding clues and discrepancies everywhere that apparently our scientific community didn't pay attention to. Right now, we are compiling a list of clues that we have discovered in the lore as well as the logs, so we can start comparing them to our findings here in the field. And we will be submitting a full report on our findings as it pertains to the logs. For now, it is time for us to return to Guardian space. We have stumbled on a series of clues present at the Alpha Complex, and we are still trying to analyze all of them for our next series of reports. And the amount of processes is alarming. Just based on shadows and relic towers, we can identify at least a dozen processes that we've already missed. So yeah, there's that. No rest for the wicked, I suppose. And of course, we will keep you updated on all of our progress. This is Commander V. Clara, signing off. Kapla.